Hey guys, so I'm so happy that you guys are joining me today. I'm recording this on May 1st, which is the first day of Mental Health Awareness Month. And this is just a topic that has been on my heart that I want to share with you guys about what does it mean to be a family member or a loved one of someone who suffers from a mental illness, and how does it kind of affect us, as well as how can we be conscientious of how it affects them and be as supportive and loving as possible, through these situations. So I'm going to share with you first a little bit about my personal experience, and then kind of like a little bit about what I've learned, specifically in the area of having siblings and family members, close family members who are suffering from a mental illness. So to begin with, at first, I didn't really grow up knowing a lot about mental illness. I didn't really understand it. Even though, like I said, I had cousins, I had family members who had some type of illness, it was kind of like protected from me as a kid, not really something that was explained to us. But as I started to get older, my own brother, I have five siblings. So there's six of us total. Some are my dad's kids, some are my mom's kids, and then my brother and I are the two in the middle that they had together. So of the five siblings that I have, three out of the five of them have a diagnosed mental illness. And with mental illness, it's kind of like sometimes the symptoms can overlap. So I believe all three of them have bipolar disorder, but two of them for sure have bipolar disorder, and the other one kind of has received mixed diagnoses. But again, I believe all three of them have bipolar disorder. So anyway, for a lot of them, it didn't even really become a thing until later in life, really closer to their 30s. Two of them in their mid to late 30s, and then my brother, who's my one whole sibling, we believe that he actually started to experience symptoms of this when he was a teenager, but he was removed from home for a good portion of his life. So in high school, he started going to boarding school, which is around the time that we think he started to experience these symptoms. So he was away from home the majority of the year. And then right after boarding school, he went to college. So now that's 4 years plus 4 years is 8 years of him not being in day-to-day contact with us. And then even after college, he kind of stayed away, stayed around the neighborhood where he went to school, and took on different things that he did, which kept him from coming home. And then finally, so by this point, it's probably been almost 10 years that he's been, being ill without us really knowing or taking any kind of intervention. So he comes back toward New York, and he, stays with us, and our family starts to notice that some of the things that he's saying are just not in touch with reality. But the thing is, for the people who are experiencing this, right, to them it is reality. There's nothing you can tell them that's gonna say no, what you're saying is, they'll say things that we know are delusional. It could be stuff that we would coin as, and I don't like to use this word, but crazy talk, because I know now from these experiences that it's not crazy, and we have to stop putting those kind of labels on it. It's really just a matter of what's going on in their brain, either chemicals or just things are not, functioning the way that they are in, say your brain or my brain, but it can be healed and it can be addressed. So they're not crazy, first of all. Let's throw that language out of here. But, to us, some of the things they're saying might sound like that. So that's how we sort of started to all be a little bit well, let's look into this. But it was a really long journey from when we were okay, he's near us, he's saying these things, to actually being able to, ooh, child, I can't even I'm going to give you guys the abbreviated version because there's so much to explain. But basically, it's really hard to, even if a person clearly has a mental illness, they're not able to take care of themselves, like the people we see on the streets, it's hard to forcibly get them to be committed to a hospital, or you can't really force anyone to take medication, right? Or force anyone to go to a hospital. That's, in a lot of states, that's the way the laws are set up to protect people. So they could be sick as could be, and you can't really force them. You can only encourage them or whatever. So we kind of had our hands tied. That's why it felt so difficult, because for most of this time, well, pretty much all this time, I was living at home with my mother, right? So first my brother was able to, like I said, he was able to take care of himself, be in his own apartment, but then he kind of moved out of that apartment. Again, weird situation, weird story. And then he was like staying with some of our family members, but that was again kind of like because of the interaction became a rift. So he started staying back home with my mother, myself, my stepfather, my family. Like it went from just saying things to like also then like after more time passed, not really being able to take care of himself. So like they might not care like about like combing their hair, or like maybe they brush their teeth, maybe they don't, like maybe they don't shower for a few days. They definitely don't, you know, in our experience, wash their clothes or like tend to certain things that a healthy, normal person that's been doing these things all their life wouldn't just stop, you know? And their mind becomes so cluttered that it's hard for them to even think about those other things. They're just not a priority as far as all of the levels and levels and levels and levels of thoughts. It's like so many things. I had taken a class with my mom when we were trying to, you know, understand how to better help him and like communicate with him, and they made us do an exercise where, you know, we were trying to like understand or like complete a task, and a lot of people were having to talk to us. All these different people were talking to us at the same time in our ear, loud, quiet. And they were like, this is kind of, and it was overwhelming, but they were like, this is kind of what their day-to-day life is like they have that much going on in their brain, and as far as like conflicting voices and thoughts and noise, you know. What ended up happening was my brother was getting worse and worse and worse, and you know, kind of becoming more out of touch with reality, and as far as the things he was saying, like not taking care of himself, not communicating, avoiding interactions with us. Like he would sleep all day and then stay up all night so he wouldn't have to, you know, address us or deal with other people. He would, you know, obviously they can't work when they get to this point, so he would be asking people for money, like asking us all the time, our family members, people that like we knew, people from the street, like just always like asking people for money or like taking change where it was available. Just really, really, really like not, you know, what you want to see for somebody that you know was once doing really well for themselves and that has so much potential. So, you know, the fight to get him to be, you know, hospitalized at times or to take medication was really difficult. And there were like maybe 3 or 4 times total that it took for us to finally get him like to the path where he is doing like now. But again, like you might get them to the hospital like I think maybe once he might have gone on once or twice he went on his own will. Another 2 times we had to actually you know, call them to come get him, which like I said is very hard because you have to have kind of evidence or support as to why they should take a person against their own will, you know. But the first few times what would happen is he would start taking the medication, maybe like 2 weeks in he'd be doing well, and then he'd be like, I don't need it, I feel great. And we'd be like, no, you need to stay on it. And he'd stop, and then it would be this like, the pain of like starting that whole thing over again. And it would be often, it was more than a year in between like each of these hospitalizations. So it's like, it was a really long multi-year process to finally, you know, get him to commit to it. And there was even a time where, you know, my mother had told him that she needed him to stay on medication if he wanted to live in our home. And he kind of was like, fine, then I'll just go. And he left, and he was on the streets for like maybe like 12 days that we just didn't hear from him. It was like the dead of winter. We didn't know where he was. He didn't even have a real coat, because that's another thing is, like I said, they don't necessarily take care of themselves in the way that you and I know to put on a coat, like comb our hair, that kind of stuff. Not leave a pot of water on the stove and forget about it. So, you know, there was that kind of like, it was very painful for us. Imagine not knowing where your brother or your family member is for like days and days. And just like that time, I think I like literally every night I would just like pray for like, I don't even know how long. I would just pray and cry, like literally cry myself to sleep some of those nights, because I just didn't know where he was. And I was like, oh, it was really like difficult. So, and difficult also for me to see my mom, you know, like not have a lot of support in that area except for me, and like I didn't even really have that much to offer, so difficult for my whole family. My grandmother was like stressed. You know, finally, like I said, maybe like the 4th time, you know, we were able to get help because we had kind of like a home service person, like a home counselor who would come to our home to talk to him, because my brother didn't want to go. He wasn't medicated at this time, but he didn't want to go to like a hospital or anything. But somebody would come to our house just to talk to him, to kind of monitor him. And, you know, this guy was able to help us when we were, even though my brother had at this point said, oh, I don't want to talk to him anymore, we were able to call this guy and say, well, he's doing this, he's doing this, he's doing this. We think this qualifies as like, you know, he's becoming a danger to himself and to others. Like I said, going outside in the winter with no sufficient coat, forgetting stuff on the stove in our house. So the guy helped us and was able to, tell us and vouch for us too when we, told the hospital like he really is at the point where he needs to be against whether it's his will or not to be medicated. So they came, they took him, and that time, finally, after like I said, multiple attempts, he accepted it. And I think maybe he was just, at that point, he just understood that he needed to, but he stuck with it and he stuck with it. And that was like a few years ago, like I said, maybe in 2014. So now he's really, after like it took time to, how do I explain this? It took time to balance finding the right medicine, finding the right, lifestyle changing. He's exercises. He, like I said, he tried a lot of different medicines to find the ones that were right for him. And he's doing like really well. And, he's like just becoming back to being the person that he wants to be. And, it's not, of course, they're still living with an illness. It's not a cure. So it's not like, oh, it's done. Like, okay, go ahead, go live your life. No, it's still, we're still involved in his life in a lot of ways. And he still stays with my mother, but he's, getting back to doing the things he wants to do, like finishing school and like working on his ideas for his business and, doing his art and all that kind of stuff. So to see him like being his like old self, or not his old self, because it's a new person, but being the self that he's meant to be, I'll say, is like, so, I can't even say it's a relief. It's just so, like makes me so happy. So basically what I would say, if you are a person, because like I said, he's not the only one in my family. I have 2 other siblings who are still kind of working through their own journey, and I have tons of cousins and family members who, whether they're like close or distant family members, they have their own kind of stuff they're going through. But 2 of them, like I've also seen them really like, as they've been dealing with this for many years, now they're like getting to be on the cusp of like doing so well for themselves. And like, I'm so happy to see that, but it does take time. So you have to be patient with them. I'd say you have to be patient. You have to understand it's something that takes years. Like, I don't mean even like 4 years, like on average, it probably takes a person with, a diagnosed mental health issue, like about 10 years to get to a point where they're functioning on their own in life and successfully. Honestly, I know that's like hard to swallow, but that's how much time it takes for them to find the right balance of medication, to set up their lifestyle for success, and to understand what they need. So be patient, be supportive. Like, don't ever, try to make them feel bad or make them like, like feel like, oh, something's wrong with you. Like, just, they have something that 1 in 4 people have. So it could easily have been you, or, we never know, like when we'll be in a situation where our, mental state is compromised, or we're under a lot of stress and anxiety or depression or whatever. Like, it might not be, bipolar disorder, but it might be something different for a different scenario or a different person. So be understanding, be supportive. For me, really, I have to say that having our faith, trusting God to deliver him from this situation and to like support us during the situation, because it was emotionally taxing. Like, taxing isn't even, it was really honestly the most, I think, like one of the most, if not the most difficult, heavy, weighty situations that we've had to deal with. So you have to, have that faith to help you, or hold on to the faith that it will get better, and, for us, we definitely prayed a lot, like incessantly we prayed, and we believed, like we knew, like, this is not the destiny that, like, this is not the end for him. God has a plan for him. Like, everybody has a different take on medication. Some people are like, I'm not taking medication. I don't want to take medication for my whole life. There's side effects. I can't tell you, or, what's right and what's wrong, but I will say in the case of my brother, medication did help him. It did work for him. It does work for him. And like I said, it wasn't easy for him to find the right mix, but he found some now where he's like, feels good. He looks good. He's happy. His mood is like good, So, I'd say don't be scared if like, you're taking medication, it's not working, or you see the person's medicated, but it's not, you're not seeing them like change right away. It takes time, finding the right balance, or even for the system to acclimate to it. And then they also say that, say a person, the longer a person has gone unmedicated, it's a little bit more challenging for them to return to kind of like a healthier state. So it might take different types of medication, or they might have to take it for longer. I don't know. Like I'm not too well versed in that area, but I just wanted to say that you'll find a solution. They'll find a solution. Just don't give up on them, and like stay strong, and like try not to let it take you down emotionally too much, because if that were like my approach, we probably wouldn't see my brother like living his best life like he is now, or on his way to living his best life. He's still working through his own journey, but he's doing way better, like so much better. So I hope that me sharing that with you guys was like a little bit consoling, or a little bit inspiring, or help you understand a little bit more what it's like for us, if we have a person in our family, in our life, our brother, our sister, our cousin, our mother, whoever, who is dealing with this, and to just like I said, reaffirm in you that it's gonna be okay. Like if you stick it through, if you see it through, even if it takes years, like they can come out of that situation, and it's not gonna control them. It's not gonna have a hold on you guys' relationship. So just pray for them, and just believe the best. Believe that they will come out of it, and eventually, even if it takes 10 years, eventually they will come out of it, and you'll be so happy that you believe the best, like I said. So hope that was of interest to you. Stay tuned for the rest of the month. I'm going to tell you guys about a couple more experiences that I've had, because there are so many, as far as like friends, dealing with friends that have had a mental illness, and that maybe this situation didn't exactly turn out the way this one did, as well as like being in a relationship with a person, not knowing that they had a mental illness, and how that had an effect on me personally, and just like more information about this topic. So I hope that this was helpful, and stay strong.